When we think of Italy, we picture a beautiful European country, filled with iconic landmarks, breathtaking architecture and food so delicious it's loved all over the world. In other words, we see a modern developed nation where people enjoy prosperity, social security and less inequalities than countries like the United States, Brazil or China. But take off those rose-colored glasses and a different Italy comes into view, one deeply divided between the wealthy north and the struggling south. In Lombardy, the economic heart of the north, the GDP per capita is 127% of the EU average. Meanwhile, in Calabria, far down in the south, it's just 56%. That's less than half. Nearly 1 in 12 Italians lives in absolute poverty, and in regions like Campania and Apulia, poverty rates climb above 20%.
But how is this possible?
This gap isn't just about statistics, it's a tale of history, missed opportunities and policies that lifted one part of the nation while leaving the other behind. Guys, hit the like button, subscribe and let's find out why does this divide still exist and what will it take to truly unite Italy's north and south. The roots of Italy's north-south divide go back to the very beginning of the nation's unification in 1861. Even back then, the south was poorer, with limited industrialization compared to the more developed north. When Italy adopted free trade policies, southern industries couldn't compete with the more advanced northern economy, leading to widespread collapse. This was the foundation of the economic disparity we see today. Before 1937, there were sparks of industrial activity in southern cities like Naples and Toronto. However, by the late 1930s, the north pulled further ahead. Industrial hubs like Milan and Turin thrived, fueled by better railways, ports and proximity to major European markets. The south, isolated and underdeveloped, was left behind. Unification wasn't just the economic challenge, it was deeply personal for southerners. Many resisted the process, leading to violent crackdowns by the new Italian government. Thousands fled the south, driven away by poverty and repression. By the late 19th century, entire southern communities were emigrating, with nearly 10 million Italians living between 1876 and 1926, many from the south. And before we continue, drop your thoughts in the comments. Why do you think the north is so rich and the south so poor? Italy's geography has played a huge role in deepening the divide between the north and the south. The north's location, close to major European markets like France, Germany and Switzerland, gave it a head start in trade and industrialization. This advantage only grew over time. After 1937, Italy invested heavily in transportation infrastructure like railways and highways. But most of these developments were concentrated in the north. Cities like Milan, Turin and Venice thrived, while southern regions were largely overlooked. Meanwhile, the South's geography and history created additional challenges. For centuries, southern agriculture depended on large estates worked by low-paid laborers or even slaves during earlier periods. Unlike the North, where small independent farms encouraged innovation, the South's outdated systems made modernization nearly impossible. The South's rocky terrain and arid climate further compounded the problem. Regions like Basilicata and Calabria struggled with poor soil and limited access to water, making farming both less productive and less profitable. By contrast, the fertile Po Valley in the north became a breadbasket for the entire country. The numbers tell the story. Today, northern regions like Lombardy enjoy world-class infrastructure, while some southern areas still lack adequate roads and railways. The south has always faced the uphill battle of being further from Europe's economic herd, stuck with systems that kept it tied to the past. The wealth gap between Italy's north and south is about more than geography. It's about deep-seated systemic issues that persist across generations. Surprisingly, income inequality within regions can be even sharper than the disparities between them. For instance, wealthy families in southern Campania sometimes enjoy higher incomes than some struggling families in Milan. This shows that poverty and prosperity often coexist within the same area, complicating the narrative of the north-south divide. Gender plays a huge role in this inequality, particularly in the south. Women in southern provinces face staggering barriers to workforce participation, with rates far below the national average. In regions like Calabria and Sicily, fewer than 35% of women are employed, compared to over 60% in some northern provinces like Emilia-Romagna. These gaps directly impact household incomes and limit economic growth in the south. Studies reveal that geography accounts for up to 10.2% of income differences among women. This means that where a woman is born in Italy significantly affects her chances of finding work and earning a decent wage. While northern regions benefit from more progressive policies and job opportunities, southern areas often lack the infrastructure to support women in the workforce. The numbers tell a story of a nation divided. As of 2023, over 5.6 million Italians live in absolute poverty, a crisis disproportionately concentrated in the south. In Apulia, nearly 27.5% of residents struggle to meet basic needs, while in Campania, that figure is 23%. Compare this to Lombardy, the northern economic hub, where the rate is just 5.9%. Even the cost of living reveals stark contrasts. In bustling northern cities like Milan, the poverty threshold is 800 euros per month for a single person, but in rural southern areas, the threshold drops to 550 euros per month, a reflection of the south's lower cost, but also its limited opportunities and services. The disparity is even more jarring when you consider the hidden cost of poverty, lack of access to quality healthcare, education and infrastructure. In many southern regions, poverty becomes a cycle, trapping families across generations, while the north continues to thrive. What keeps Italy's north and south so different? A big part of the story lies in institutions, culture, and the impact of rising costs. In the south, there is a noticeable lack of investment in education and infrastructure. Schools in southern regions often receive 20–30% less funding than their northern counterparts, limiting opportunities for young people. Poor roads and limited public transport also makes it harder for businesses to thrive, keeping job prospects low. This gap is fueled by a long history of mistrust between the north and the south. Northern businesses often avoid investing in the south, fearing corruption or inefficiency. Meanwhile, southern regions feel overlooked by national policies that seem tailored to northern priorities. Adding to the challenge is inflation. Rising prices hit low-income families the hardest, and the south feels the pinch of the most. Southern households spend 40% of their income on basic needs, like food and housing, compared to just 25% in the north. When prices rise, families already struggling in regions like Calabria and Sicily are pushed even closer to poverty. So what can Italy do to bridge the gap between the north and south? The answer starts with smart investments. Improving education and infrastructure in the south is key. Building better schools, modern roads and reliable public transport could create new opportunities for millions. Italy can also draw lessons from the history. The Marshall Plan helped rebuild Europe after World War II by targeting economic development. Similar focused investments could uplift the south, just like European integration reduced disparities between member states. National policies must also tackle issues like gender participation. In southern regions, women's workforce participation is nearly 20% lower than in the north. Closing this gap could unleash untapped economic potential. Lastly, addressing urban-rural inequalities across the country can ensure that all Italians, regardless of location, have access to basic services and economic opportunities. By taking bold steps, Italy can create a more unified and prosperous future. What do you think Italy should do to bridge the gap? Italy's north-south divide is more than just a geographical split. It's a story deeply rooted in history, culture, and systemic inequality. From the industrial advantages of the north to the lingering challenges of the south, this gap has been shaped by centuries of uneven development, failed policies, and economic priorities that favored one region over another. The numbers speak for themselves. GDP per capita in Lombardy is more than double that of the Calabria. Poverty rates in southern regions like Campania exceed 20% compared to just 5.9% in the north. These disparities are stark and persistent, impacting millions of lives every day. But this isn't just about numbers, it's about opportunity and fairness. Bridging this gap requires bold action and long-term commitment. Will Italy rise to the challenge and unite its divided regions for a better future? Write your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to hit a like button, subscribe and share this video so you don't miss our next episodes. Catch you in the next one.